This is a tutorial on how to do some of the problems on 4.5 homework. Before we start, I want to remind everybody about proving the triangle congruencies. There is only 1, 2, 3, 4 ways that you can prove that triangles are congruent. The first one is when all 3 sides, corresponding sides, are congruent. Second one is when you have 2 sides with an angle in between. Second one, ASA, is when you have 2 angles with a side in between corresponding. And the last one is when you have an angle, and then a side. Now, as we go into the first question for 4.5, we have to identify the congruent triangles with their corresponding parts, as well as explain why they're congruent. So the first one, you see GHI, G, go down 2, H, then I, would be congruent with L, go down 2, oh, L doesn't go down on 2, right? So G is the angle that's corresponding with L, but if you notice, they're not the same corresponding angles in lines or sides, so that means that it's not necessarily congruent. Let's go to the next one. You see there's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, let's see, 1, 2, 3. So we have corresponding sides, and we have 3 of them. So we can say that it is side, 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 right there. And then now we have to make sure that we have the corresponding angles when we name it. So M goes to N down side 2, and M is also connected with side 1. So we need to look for that angle that has side 1 and side 2, which would be R. So we'd put R. And then we're going to go down side 2, which is Q. And then we're going to go down, as you see, N goes to O and Q goes to P. It's very important that you make sure you have the corresponding angles, or the congruent statement will not be correct. The next one, we see angle 1, C, go down side 1 to angle 2, A. We have angle 1, D, going down side 1 to angle 2, F. So this would be congruent as well. We would call that one angle. We go to a side, and then we go to an angle. When we name it, it looks like we're going to angle 2, going up to our other angle B that is not named, so we can call that angle 3, and then we go down to angle 1. So we'll do the same thing here. Angle 2 is F. Then we go up to angle 3, which is E, and go back down to angle 1, which is D. All right. That one is considered the identifying what triangles you're using. Now we're going to actually apply that in a proof. And this proof deals with right angles. So when we look and we see that DEF and GHE, both of those are right angles. And since they're both right angles, they're going to be congruent. So we can say that DEF is congruent to GH. Now we see that EF is congruent to HF. Why would that be? Because it's given to us right here. Now when we go, we say DFE, GFE. A lot of times if you don't know the reason, look at your picture. DFE, so this angle right here is going to be congruent to this angle right here. And if you notice, they're across from each other, which means they are vertical angles. Now when we look up, we have these 3. We have an angle, we have a side, and we have an angle. Now we have to find the placement of those angles and sides. So we have this one right here, angle, and then we have a side right here, and then we have another angle. So if we have an angle and then a side is in between our angles, the reason would be all the way down, angle, side, angle. Let's go to another proof that's very similar, but instead of sharing a congruent angle, we're going to share a side. So again, we have PRQ and PRS. Since they're right triangles, we can say they are congruent because all right angles are congruent. Then we have PQR. So PQR is congruent to PSR because it's given to us. And the last, the PR of this triangle is congruent to the PR of this triangle. And so because of the reflexive property, we can say that those two sides are congruent. When we look, we have this angle, we have this angle, and then off to the side, we have this side right here. So the side is not in between your angles, which means it's, again, off to the side. So we're going to have an angle, we're going to have an angle, and then a side. All right, we will complete one more of the identifying your triangles. If we look here, we have angle 1, slide over to another angle. We can call this one angle 2. And then we would go to side 3 to your last angle. So let's make sure we can do the same thing. We're at angle 1. We can slide down angle 1. It'll hit to P. And when I slide to P, if you notice here, M to O goes here, and across from me is my 2. But when I slide down my 1 here, beside me is my side 2, which means that they don't have corresponding parts, so they're not necessarily congruent. Over here we have C, and we have A angle 1, you slide over, it goes to 1. If you go from angle 1 and slide over again, it goes to another alternate one. So if we do the same thing here, F, we can slide over, it goes to an empty one. You slide over, it goes to an empty one. So unlike this one above, we can see that these two triangles are going to be congruent. So we can say that they're congruent. We can say that it's because there's a side and an angle between them. And when we identify it, we're going to go angle A, so 1, and then we're going to slide over to 2, and then 3. So we're going to start with our 1, which is F, slide over to 2, and then end with 3. The last one, we see that the side is in between my 2 angles. The side is in between my 2 angles. So it would be angle, side, angle. Again, we're going to go from U, which is 2, to 3, to 1. So we're going to go 2, to 3, to 1. Z to X to Y. All right. Here's a quick run through and a few examples on how to do 4.5.